5 years old Lauda, already twice champion in 1975 and 1977, leads the title chase with 54 points from 4 wins and 3 second places. His vast experience over 13 years of Grand Prix racing must make him favourite for a hat-trick of titles. Alain Prost, 29 years old, could be France's first ever world champion. With 4 years experience, he's only 1.5 points behind his McLaren teammate, but he's faded a bit in the second half of the season with no points from 3 of the last 5 races. His record includes 5 wins this year, one of them being a half-points victory at Monaco. Elio De Angelis is the odd man out, the only other driver with a mathematical chance of winning the title, remote though it is. 29.5 points to the JPS driver, who's been the most consistent of all this season, with points finishes in all but 3 races so far. Today at Monza, perhaps, but most improbably, the partisan crowd will elect to support not just Ferrari, but also their fellow countryman, the 26-year-old De Angelis. For after final practice, De Angelis is well in touch, 3rd on the grid behind Piquet and Prost, but ahead of Lauda 4th, with Theo Fabi 5th, Rosberg 6th, Nigel Mansell 7th and Tombe 8th. Then the 2 Alfa Romeos of Patrese and Chiva 9th and 10th, with Alboreto and Warwick frustratedly down at 11th and 12th, and Jonathan Palmer just in the race at 26th. Leads, but Piquet, with that fantastic BMW horsepower, punches into the lead from the Goodyear chicane. It's De Angelis 2nd, it's Prost 3rd, it's one of the Renaults in 4th position, and they're all cleanly through the chicane with Stefan Johansson, who is substituting in the Tolman for the suspended Ayrton Senna, the Brazilian driver, last in the race at the moment. Piquet leads then, De Angelis 2nd, Prost 3rd, then the Renault, then it's Nigel Mansell, I think, in 5th position, ahead of Niki Lauda, and they're now round the Lesmo bends. That is 4th gear, and a brilliant start for Piquet, James.
Yes, he used his power there, but really I felt a bit sorry for De Angelis, who made clearly the best start of the first 2 rows of the grid. And he got away first, he went through between the front row, and Piquet just purely out-accelerated him, which, of course, speaks volumes for the BMW power. So a clean start, no problems at all, everybody got through, and Piquet now establishes himself in quite a comfortable lead, and Prost pulling out, having a look, but De Angelis is making him go the long way round.
And the Renault is that of Patrick Tombe, followed by Theo Fabi. There in 6th or 7th position is Niki Lauda. They're coming out of the Parabolica to complete lap 1 now, and it's Piquet well in the lead. From Prost 2nd, Tombe going up into 3rd, ahead of De Angelis 4th, Fabi 5th, Lauda is in 6th position, and Nigel Mansell 7th. So Piquet, Prost, Tombe, De Angelis, Fabi, Lauda, Mansell, and then the 2 Alfa Romeos of Riccardo Patrese and Eddie Chiva, and already Mark Sura has been into and out of the pits. In fact, a very late start by Mark Sura in the Arrows, with the first lap completed in this 52-lap race, and Patrick Tombe is going extremely well in the Renault because he's now right up behind Alain. Piquet on the grass there. Prost 2nd, Tombe 3rd, De Angelis 4th, Fabi 5th, Lauda 6th. Now they are through and down to the Ascari chicane for the 2nd time.
Yes, and Piquet is really pushing it, trying to stretch it. We saw him go wide, coming out of the first Lesmo, and he's right to try very hard there because the 2 Lesmo corners are really the key to quick lap times at Monza. But Prost is now beginning to close in a bit, and Tambe is going fantastically well in 3rd place. He's come up on the grid. Renaults have not had a good season, particularly when it's come to the race, but this is one of the best opening sessions for a Renault for a long time.
of lap 2, it's Piquet, Prost, Torbay absolutely together. Then the Angelis with Farby trying to take him. And Lauda in the second position. These are the first three. Piquet, Prost, Torbay, then Farby, the Angelis, Lauda. There is Nigel Mansell, the first of the Ferraris. Behind Mansell in 8th position is that of Michele Alboreto. Arnoux has moved up a few places in the second Ferrari, but a terrific scrap for the lead. Piquet, Prost and Torbay, Brabham, McLaren and Renault going through the Rozier bends.
Yes, and the fastest man on the track at the moment would appear to be Patrick Tombay, who's absolutely flying. He's now joined the leading pair and would be looking for a way round.
Now up to the Ascari chicane again. Here they come underneath the bridge, which is the old bank track, and it's still Piquet with Prost in his wheel tracks. Torbay third. Farby is in 4th position now, ahead of number 11 there, Elio De Angelis, who, like Lauda, is in pain because Elio De Angelis pulled a muscle in his shoulder in the warm-up this morning, and I'm expecting him to drop back. I'm expecting Lauda to take him. Indeed, as I say that, Lauda comes out of De Angelis' slipstream and takes 5th position. So the Austrian, very heavily strapped up, is up into 5th place as the leaders go through. Prost has blown his engine, I think. He's slowed right down. Well, look at it. Alain Prost is in trouble. Or he's got oil. Yes, Prost is slowing, and already this is a terrific major development. Alain Prost on the 3rd lap in this race looks as though he is out of it. And now up into 2nd place comes Patrick Torbay. In 3rd position it is Theo Farby, and there he is. So the Brabhams are 1st and 3rd, and the man who's 2nd in the World Championship is out of the race. Arnoux out of the race. So now the Ferrari fans, the Tifosi's cup of misery will be overflowing because one of their 2 cars which qualified so badly, that of René Arnoux, is out of the Italian Grand Prix on lap 7. We have 2 major retirements already, Alain Prost and now René Arnoux.
And there goes Theo Farby. And I was just about to say, I would suspect that Piquet is going absolutely flat out, because the one thing you don't like to see on your tail is your own teammate. And Farby, Italian driver in his home Grand Prix, but he's got going again. He didn't lose the engine, so he will rejoin in something like 12th, 13th place, thereabouts, and not out of touch, because Farby was going very well indeed in the race, and he could still get right back into the points. And there's Alain Prost walking back to the pits, and that will be a great disappointment to him. Of course, he now has to put his World Championship chances into the lap of the gods, and whether Lauda can consolidate and finish this race in the points.
Well, the gap between Lauda and Alboreto is 5.5 seconds, and Alboreto's got a real train of vehicles behind him as Nelson Piquet goes through to complete his 9th lap, pulling away a bit now from Patrick Torbay 2nd, and it's still on his own, Niki Lauda, as Torbay goes through the Goodyear chicane. Now it's Alboreto, De Angelis. But now Theo Farby is fighting his way up through the field after that spin of his. He's in amongst the battle for 4th and 5th place. That's Alboreto, De Angelis, Cheever, Derek Warwick, and Theo Farby has not only caught them, but has passed 2 of them. We're on lap 10 now. Nelson Piquet on his own. He's only got to pray for a reliable BMW engine to keep him where he is, and that is to make it his 2nd successive victory in the Italian Grand Prix. And there's a long, long gap now between the 2nd place man, Patrick Torbay, and 3rd Niki Lauda. Here are Chiva and Warwick. Chiva being taken by Warwick. And that's Farby up into 4th position now. He's taken Alboreto. So Teo Farby, who's spun out in 3rd position on lap 8, is getting back through the field. He's up to 4th position. So the battle for leadership continues to rage on lap 14 between these two cars. Piquet and Tombe, 1st and 2nd. Mansell out. Nigel Mansell has spun off, and I suspect that is at the Rozier chicane. So Nigel Mansell, he won't get going again. His car will be full of dust and gravel, and he's out of the Italian Grand Prix. Piquet in trouble. Do you see that burst of smoke from Piquet's car? Is he slowing? Well, that's a danger sign.
Yes, there was. Yes, there we go. Yes, Piquet is definitely on his last legs. He can't do that and carry on for very long. So we saw the burst of smoke. He's still pressing on, but I don't honestly think that we're going to see Piquet for more than a couple of laps. Even if it's an oil leak, right, it'll eventually run out and everything has to stop. So Tombe, who must be very happy, he's had a wretched season for Renault. Things really haven't gone well. He hasn't been able to show his true ability. Piquet has slowed right down now, in real trouble. His engine sounds horrible, and there goes Tombe into the lead.
Lap 16, and Patrick Tombe takes the lead. There he is from Nelson Piquet. Here is Patrick Tombe on lap 16, leading the Italian Grand Prix, and he's leading now with, it depends whether Lauda or Piquet come through next as to who the 2nd place man will be. Let's look and see. It's Lauda. Lauda is now 2nd on lap 16. There is Tombe leading. Piquet out of it, Mansell out of it, Lafitte out of it, Rosberg out of it, and Arnoux and Prost. And there comes the engine cover and the cockpit cover off Piquet's car. Piquet is out of the car. Piquet is out of the Italian Grand Prix. And now it is Tombe leading with Lauda 2nd, and I think soon to be displaced by Farby. Alboreto is 4th, Chiva is 5th, Warwick is 6th, Johansson is 7th, Boutsen 8th, Patrese 9th, Ginzani 10th, Gartner 11th, and Gerhard Berger, the Austrian in the ATS, is in 12th place. Tombe. Now look amongst this bunch of cars, and you'll see in 2nd place, the 3rd of them is Niki Lauda. It's not, it's Farby. Farby is now up into 2nd place ahead of Niki Lauda, and we could yet see a charge by Teo Farby with his Italian adrenaline flowing in the Italian Grand Prix to catch the leader, Patrick Tombe.
Farby now in 2nd place is some 5 seconds or 5.5 seconds behind Tombe, and before his spin he seemed to be the quickest on the circuit, but of course at that time remember that Tombe was being held up by Piquet. Piquet is now gone, Tombe is lapping quicker, but can Farby catch him?
And there's some very important dignitaries from Italy in the VIP's box here today, watching over the Italian Grand Prix, and they're seeing Patrick Tombe leading, Teo Farby now in 2nd place, 7 seconds behind.
And what we are seeing is an absolutely superb drive from Stefan Johansson. The Tolman team have been suffering their problems recently with contractual difficulties with Ayrton Senna, and they brought in Stefan Johansson. He had a lot of trouble qualifying, just qualified the car on the back of the grid, and is absolutely charging through this race. So a marvellous drive by Stefan Johansson, and I would think that will virtually guarantee him a job with Tolman next year.
Well, sad news for the JPS team and fans. Elio De Angelis is out of the Italian Grand Prix. He had a mathematical chance of becoming world champion when the race began, That has now been totally destroyed, and the championship is now finally between Alain Prost, who has retired, and the second of these two men that you're looking at. It's Niki Lauda, who is in third position in the race, on his way at the moment to 4 championship points, and either then Alain Prost or Niki Lauda has to be world champion of 1984. I must say I'm a little worried in purist terms at the way Fabi is really clouting the entry and the exit to the chicanes by riding the curbs. He is, of course, doing a 10/10 in his efforts to catch Patrick Tambay, who's 5.5 seconds ahead of him. Nevertheless, look at the way Lauda is going through the corners, and you will note that he's demonstrably smoother than Teo Fabi in front of him, and it looks to me as though Patrick Tambay is dropping back a bit.
It's really impossible at the moment to assess Lauda's form in this race. He looks very comfortable indeed, as Murray says, extremely smooth, while Fabi is obviously on 10/10 and giving it everything. But Lauda doesn't have to hurry now. He can sit. He can sit back and watch the leaders fight it out. He's using Fabi to tow him up towards Patrick Tambay, whose lead is dwindling. And he just has to relax, because only at about three-quarters distance does the race really start for Niki Lauda.
Now we're on lap 24, and Teo Fabi, there he is in second place, is catching Tambay at the rate of 1 second a lap. In third position, the second of the two cars you see in the picture, it's Niki Lauda. In fourth position is Michele Alboreto. Fifth is Derek Warwick, and in sixth position, Eddie Cheever. In seventh place is Stefan Johansson, going superbly in the Tolman. And that's Alboreto, fourth position. Lauda is now catching Fabi. Niki Lauda, I remind you, who had back trouble and practiced yesterday, literally crying with pain, and magnificently finished fourth on the grid, has nevertheless strapped himself up very heavily, or at least his physician Willie Dungle has. Now they're completing lap 26, and it's Tambay, Fabi, Lauda. It's 190 miles an hour up to the chicane here, where they slow down to a mere 100 to accelerate to 130 out of it. Then up to about 150 miles an hour on the Curva Grande, into fifth gear and 180 miles an hour as they come up to the Rogia, which is the second of the chicanes. And you can see now that Fabi, I think, is going to go for it, coming out of the Parabolica in this lap. He's riding the curbs. He's right under the wing almost of Patrick Tambay's Renault, which pulls away on good, extremely good fourth gear handling as they come out of the two Lesmo bends, round this Seraglio, the left-hander here, down to the Vialoni and the Ascari chicane.
A fantastic battle up front, a three-cornered fight for the lead, and we're already well past half distance now, and I think that whatever happens, here come the leaders. That's Winkelhock just in front of them. Oh, sorry, that's Berger, the Austrian driver, being lapped again. But I think whatever happens, that Tambay and Fabi will try and stay out there, even if they're in a bit of trouble with their tires. They will try and finish in this current corner. And that presents a bit of a problem for Niki Lauda, because does he want to accept 4 points in fourth place? There's no doubt that he is potentially the fastest man on the circuit now, or does he want to settle for 4, or does he want to try and pass them and fight his way through with the risks involved to capture the extra 9? If I was in his shoes, I'd go for the 9. I think one would have to go for the win.
A quick few compliments to Gerhard Berger there. It's only his second Grand Prix, but he very courteously, having kept a good eye on his mirrors, let Tambay and Fabi and Lauda through. And the result is that the gap is much the same, although Niki Lauda has got Hugh Brotengatter in the Spirit in front of him, but I think he's passed him now. They're coming down. Yes, he has. He's got past Rotengatter, the Dutch driver, in the Spirit Heart car. And on lap 33, we see Tombe, Farby, Lauda battling for the lead. It's still Alboreto 4th, Warwick 5th, Chiva in 6th position, Johansson is 7th, Patrese is 8th, Ginzani is 9th. Derek Warwick off the circuit, there is his car. Derek Warwick on lap 34, out of the Grand Prix.
Now Lauda's right up behind Farby. Farby made a bit of a mistake there, coming out of the chicane. But of course the Brabham is very, very quick down the straight. But I would think that Lauda will be looking now. He's been very comfortable through the race, and I think now he'll be looking to make a move. He will want to pick up 9 points, because the difference between first and third is more than double. Right, 9 points for a win, 4 for third place, and Lauda won't be very happy with that. His car is good. It would appear that the water problem they had in the warm-up this morning has gone away, because if it was going to manifest itself, it would have done so by now. So now is the time that Nicky should be starting to make a move, and he's doing exactly that. He's starting to press Farby.
Lauda with a new engine since the warm-up. They decided to fit a new one, and this is it, is it? Well, Farby is going to need all his cool now, because Lauda is practically sawing the Brabham gearbox in half with the nose of his McLaren.
The problem for Nicky is that Teo Farby is relatively inexperienced as a Grand Prix driver, and the thought that must be going through Nicky's mind is that he is also an Italian in his home country, in his home Grand Prix, and that always pumps up a little bit of extra adrenaline. And the one thing Nicky can't afford to do is to make contact. So he's going to be very, very conservative about trying to get past Farby. He's going to be awfully careful, and I'm quite worried about it.
Tombe is definitely now benefiting from the fact that Farby is having to work very hard to keep Lauda behind him, because the Frenchman is pulling away, but he's now up to Patrese as Lauda goes for it, and he's going to take second place. Coming down to the Parabolica, and he's through. Lauda is through, up into second position. And now on lap 41, Tombe leads, Lauda second, Farby third, Alboreto fourth, Chiva fifth, Johansson sixth, Patrese seventh, and then Ginzani eighth, who's been lapped. Gartner is ninth, 10th is Sura, 11th is Berger, and 12th is Rotengatter.
So it's now a head-to-head fight. It's really a question for Nicky as to weighing up the odds as to whether he wants that extra 3 points. He's not worried about winning Grand Prix. He's won plenty of those in the past. He would like to win the championship. And he'll be churning away in his brain at the moment. Should I take the risk, try and pass Tombe, grab those extra three while they're there, and for the picking, or should I settle for a fairly conservative approach, take 6 points, and still have Prost within 1 win and 1 breakdown for me, the lead in the championship. So Nicky will be putting as much effort into his brain as he will into his body right now, because he's going to be doing a lot of weighing up of odds.
Under 10 laps to go, and I remind you that Nicky Lauda is driving that McLaren tag strapped up after putting his back out yesterday in practice, after qualifying, literally crying with pain, and he's going for it. He's going to take the lead, and he's through. Nicky Lauda leads on lap 43. The brilliant Austrian passes Patrick Tombe, and that is confirmation, I think, of the fact that Lauda, better than anyone, including Patrick Tombe, has preserved his tyres. By the way, Stefan Johansson has passed Eddie Chiva and is now 5th.
And Teo Farby has just pulled off the circuit, pulled out of 3rd place, right in front of the pits. And so that's the end of Farby's race. There he is, getting out of the car. And really a great shame, but there's a big cheer from the crowd, because that puts Alboreto up into 3rd place. And really a very worthwhile revival for Ferrari.
Patrick Tambay has stopped. Patrick Tambay has stopped on lap 45, and that means to say that Michele Alboreto is now up to second place. It's Lauda, Alboreto, Chiva, Johansson, Patrese and Ghinzani. And that looks like an Alfa Romeo out to me on the left there, and it's Chiva out as he forecast to me yesterday. The unfortunate, no doubt furious Eddie Chiva, towering over his Alfa Romeo, who was in third position, is out of the Italian Grand Prix, and it's Lauda leading, Alboreto second, Johansson third, Patrese fourth. Will he run out of fuel in his Alfa Romeo? Ghinzani fifth, and incredibly, Joe Gartner is in sixth position, albeit 2 laps behind the race leader, who is there rather, and is on lap 48 out of 51. Johansson is slowing. I think he's lost a gear. It sounds to me as though Stefan Johansson has lost a gear, but he's got a pretty substantial lead over Ghinzani, who is now in 5th position. And what a race this has been, with Piquet leading, Prost going out of the race, Arnoux going out of it, then Rosberg and Lafitte, Mansell and Piquet, De Angelis, who lost his World Championship chances, and Lauda looks like making it 5.
Yes, it's really a shame that the race has fallen apart so much in the last few laps, because we've had an absolutely fascinating and on-the-limit struggle for the lead in a 3-card fight. It's really been a very, very good race indeed, and it's just a pity that it's with the fuel consumption problems that they've had, that everybody should be dropping out at this stage.
Now in third position, Riccardo Patrese is 8 seconds behind number 27 there, Michele Alboreto, who, as you see, has 3 laps to go and is catching one of the Ocellas. It looks like Joe Gartner to me, the Austrian, who is actually in 6th position now that Eddie Chiva has retired. Yes, it is Joe Gartner. And Michele Alboreto, take a close look at the Ferrari, because this is actually the new chassis, but it's got the old bodywork on it. They had some McLaren type bodywork on it. Everybody's had to come into line now and follow John Barnard's brilliant design principles. That's the McLaren designer.
But the big problem always with copying other cars for a designer is what bit do you copy, or do they know what they're copying? Because whilst there's plenty of science involved, there's also still plenty of art in motor racing, and just copying a car won't make it the same.
Niki Lauda is catching the new 6th place man, and that's Gerhard Berger, the Austrian in the ATS. There's John Barnard to the right of the screen. On the left is Steve Nicol. To the right is Crichton Brown. They're the McLaren men, and they're waiting now to see Lauda as out goes one of the Ocellas, run out of petrol. It's Ghinzani. Ghinzani's run out of petrol. There he is, and he was in 4th position, having passed Johansson. And you see there Riccardo Patrese being chased by Joe Gartner, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if he runs out of fuel, because he's going extremely slowly. Almost at the end of the race, Stefan Johansson is actually, I see, still running, so he could well be in the points at the end of the race. And Niki Lauda is almost home to have won his 5th Grand Prix of 1984, making it 10, an amazing 10 for McLaren. They've only got one record left to beat now, and that's the number of World Championship points for the Constructors' Championship, held by the Williams team. They had 120 points. There's Berger, who's going to finish in the points. There is McLaren going into the Parabolica for 9 points to increase his championship lead over his teammate Alain Prost. And Niki Lauda has made it 5 wins this year. So a magnificent 5th win for Niki Lauda, with Michele Alboreto in 2nd place, Riccardo Patrese 3rd, Stefan Johansson 4th,
Joe Gardner in 5th position and Gerhard Berger 6th in the ATS. And that increases Niki Lauda's World Championship lead to 10.5 points over his teammate Alain Prost. And it increases McLaren's massive score to 115.5 points to increase their leadership over Ferrari. In a month's time, the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring in Germany, where Alain Prost must go for a win. But tonight, the McLaren team is very happy indeed. Niki Lauda drove an absolutely superb race, in spite, I understand, of his back going again during the race. What was the story behind that?
During the first practice, he had a disc problem, and it's happened before. Fortunately, we have a trainer on the team, and he was able to put it back in. Popped out again in practice yesterday, but worked very hard on it over the evening and went to bed early, and a lot of physiotherapy this morning, and it seemed to have done the trick, because that, along with a few seat modifications, seemed to get him through the race.
What happened to Alain Prost this afternoon?
Unfortunately, Murray, we fitted 2 new engines, that is completely new engines, not rebuilt engines, for this race to try and ensure good reliability. And 3 or 4 laps into the race, one of them failed, and unfortunately it was in Alan's car.
Prost has blown his engine, I think. He's blown right now. Well, look at it. Alain Prost is in trouble.
Well, Ron, you and your partner, John Barnard, have now created, with your 10th win this season, the most successful Grand Prix team in the history of the sport. Yet not so long ago, McLaren was flat on its back. How have the two of you revived it?
Well, I think most of the credit undoubtedly goes to John Barnard and his incredible design. The car's a really good package. We have in the Tag Turbo not only an efficient engine, but under normal conditions a very reliable one. Wasn't the case today, but that's motor racing. And I've, I suppose, been able to find the money to do it with, but certainly most of the credit goes to John.
What about drivers for 1985? Can you afford Lauda and Prost?
Well, yes, I don't think it's a question of afford. That never comes into the equation with us. We tend to choose the best and then find some way to finance it. Alain already has a contract for next year. We're in fact discussing extending that for another year, and we're very close now to agreeing terms with Niki, and I think that our driver lineup will be Niki Lauda and Alain Prost next year.
And Niki Lauda has made it 5 wins this year to equal his teammate Alain Prost in an astounding drive.